Cheers. Cheers.
3 weeks. I've been living here in the Cora Hartshorn Arboretum. All I've had was this hammer. Simplicity, my friends. That's the name of the game. What have I done today? I've babysat the squirrels, raced with the rabbits, and played tic-tac-toe with the deer. Come with me. This is perfect, my friends. The origin of Transcendentalism. If only I had somewhere to watch it.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Midwest Express. Today's date is March 31st, 1861. In this segment, we are going to do a special feature on the rise of the movement that many historians are calling Transcendentalism. These quote-unquote Transcendentalists stress the importance of individualism, nonconformity, and a connection with nature. It started in New England in the early 1830s amongst Unitarian ministers who desired to break away from the Puritan constraints of the past. Our field reporters, Virat Sethi and Xander Zingali, will be offering exclusive insight via interviews with Ralph Waldo Emerson, David Thoreau, and William Theodore Burke, three leaders in this new reform movement. Emerson grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and started his life as a poet. He and his fellow Unitarian ministers started the movement, and he wrote several Transcendentalist doctrines, most famously self-reliance. Similarly, Henry David Thoreau grew up in Concord and read the works of Emerson. He later became close friends with Emerson, who mentored Thoreau. During his famous stay on Walden Pond, Thoreau wrote his most famous work, Walden. Finally, we will interview William Theodore Burke, the epitome of a modern-day Transcendentalist, and a member of the Distinguished Transcendentalist Club. We hope that this interview will give us the everyday man's perspective of Transcendentalism. Now, without further ado, let's see these interviews, starting with Xander's exclusive interview with the man himself, Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Mr. Emerson, thank you for meeting with me today. Let's get right to it. What inspired you to write Self-Reliance?
One word: truth. I have always believed that one should go not where the path may lead, but go instead where there is no path and leave a trail.
Right. And this is the principle that you've indoctrinated into the many new Transcendentalists?
Indoctrinate is the wrong word. I encourage my followers to seek their own truth, and that is different for everyone. That said, I strongly advise everyone to create their own path.
And Mr. Emerson, the thing that's interesting about it, I think, is that you've indoctrinated the same principle and by sparking the Transcendentalist movement, one that many would deem as radical, right?
I suppose so. Some may consider it radical.
All right, Mr. Emerson. What impact have you seen from Transcendentalism, and what further impact do you foresee?
Well, Mr. Zingale, I think that our movement is very important because many other reform movements have stemmed from our ideals. Our commitment to nonconformity has spurred women's rights, abolition movements. You see, this is what's gonna happen. We're gonna move into the future.
Mr. Emerson, you mentioned slavery. What is actually your stance on abolition?
We must either get rid of slavery or get rid of freedom. There is no both.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Can you explore with a little more depth exactly how your ideals encourage these reform movements?
Yes, sure. Always said, it is great to be misunderstood. That said, it can also be great to be understood. My friend Margaret Fuller epitomizes this idea. She read my Self-Reliance and utilized transcendental ideas as a backbone for her ideas regarding women's rights, in which she advocated for the equality of the sexes.
Yeah.
She recognized a clear flaw in society and did not conform to society's norms, but rather follow her own individual truth. Margaret and many others are perfect examples of how the great potential for Transcendentalists exists. She has my utmost respect.
Ralph, Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now back to a bye.
Wow, that was a lot of information to process. Emerson really shed light on the inner workings of Transcendentalism in that interview. I really enjoyed how honest and open he was with Xander. Now, let's move on to our next interview with Viraj Sethi and the acclaimed Henry David Thoreau.
Thanks for that, Abai. As you know, we have our next guest, Henry David Thoreau. Now, Mr. Thoreau, can you explain to us exactly what your belief system is?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's an honor to be on your show, but I must say, I'm not one for supporting the majority. This news network you have going is against my belief system. I wish for all of us to be nonconformists as I am. When something is wrong in society, what do we need to do? We need to fight for what is right. In Civil Disobedience, bestseller on Barnes & Noble, I stress this, and you have used it in my life. I refused to pay a tax at the polls a few years back and spent even a night in jail. But you know what? I did the right thing because I fought against what I believed was wrong.
So, I'm under the impression that you expect others to learn from your actions and push for reform when a law violated their belief system. If this works, how do you think it will affect American society?
Oh, well, I'm really glad you asked, actually. Because I believe that with this influence, others will begin to break away from the majority when they have different ideas. My prediction is that this nonconformity will be key for movements in the future, maybe even something radical like women's rights or abolition. See, there are going to be people who believe slavery is wrong for a wide variety of reasons, and if they follow my ideas, they will resist and thus attempt to reform the government.
So, do you support this abolitionist movement?
Of course, I mean, slavery is disgusting, but even besides that, the abolitionists are exhibiting nonconformity and seeking their truth. Really true transcendentalists.
Thank you, David. Now back to the studio. Take it away, Abai.
Thank you, Viraj, for that exceptional interview. Thoreau gave some really radical predictions about the future, although they maybe were a bit far-fetched. You have to admire his optimism, though. Alright, let's continue on to our field reporter, Viraj, interviewing Theodore Burke, a member of the esteemed Transcendentalist Club.
Hello, Mr. Burke.
How are you? Please call me Ted, though.
Alright, okay, Ted. I'm doing pretty well.
Nice, me too.
Okay.
Nice.
So, Ted, I hear you are a member of the famous Transcendentalist Club. Is this true?
I mean, yes, along with Ralph Waldo Emerson, Frederick Hedge,
Wow.
George Putnam, and others founded this club in 1837, if I'm not mistaken. And we've discussed the topics of the time. You see, I was kind of the young man back then, and I actually learned a lot from my peers. They taught me specifically about how I needed to fight for my ideas and consequently be a nonconformist. So, yeah, that's pretty much it about the Transcendental Club.
Wow, it is amazing how you were able to meet such influential people. How do you believe that these ideals have changed America?
Well, I think that this idea of nonconformity, I mean, which I practice, by the way, and probably the best nonconformist in my area, but besides that, I think this idea of nonconformity could lead to some major movements. Like, I foresee people fighting against the oppression of themselves and others. And as for myself, the ideals preached by Emerson have allowed me to find my truth. I've decided to flout my parents' teachings and not work in the family store.
Thanks, Teddy. Can I call you that?
That's fine.
And now, back to Abai Studios.
Wow, those are some very insightful interviews. Emerson and Thoreau really showed us the true meaning, ideals, and impact behind this revolutionary movement. Also, I thought William Theodore Burke gave us a good view into how Transcendentalism affects the everyday man. Along with the dignified gentlemen in these interviews, you viewers can learn more from the other works of other notable Transcendentalists, such as Margaret Fuller and Amos Bronson Alcott. This concludes our segment on Transcendentalism. This has been Abai Parent, Viraj Sethi, and Xander Zingali with the Midwest Express. Have a good night.
Young Money.
Can't believe I wouldn't be here without these men. I'm gonna keep this for a long time.